Ladies and gentle gamers, welcome back to To Be Determined. Today we have an absolutely massive update on the alpha with a ton of great changes, so we're going to jump straight into it. Drop a like on the video, smash the sub button if you haven't already, and here we go. So first thing to notice is there is a new change to the pity system. So now we have a menu for the pity system, which again is a little bit different from the RNG system, the RNG meter. If you do /RNG, you can still access the RNG meter here. But you can click here to go to the pity tracker and see how you're doing on your trophy fish drops and see how you're doing on your spaceman. This will only start counting, by the way, once you hit garden level 15. So once you hit garden 15, every visitor after that will be counted towards this, but nothing before then. But yeah, you can just see exactly how close you are to dropping things straight from this menu. And there is something new that they have added to this section. If you notice right here, there's the Hoppity's Hunt. So if you haven't dropped a mythic rabbit in over 500 eggs, then you're guaranteed to drop one. You can't set which one you're going to drop, but you will be guaranteed to drop one. Same thing for divine. So you can drop one if you haven't dropped one in 2,500 eggs. The next egg will be guaranteed that you get a divine. Again, it could be a duplicate divine. It's not guaranteed that it's going to be a unique one that you haven't dropped yet, but it does mean that you will be getting divines a little bit easier and hopefully be able to get all the uniques a bit faster. There is also a pity system now for Moonglade Marsh with the Tree the Fish, Mob the Fish, and Fish the Fish. And there's also a pity system in Glacial Tunnels. They have changed a little bit how some of the blocks count for spawning a mineshaft, so specifically gems. All the regular gems that you'll find in the crystal hollows like topaz, ruby, that sort of thing, those will all count for 8 towards this. And then if it's one of the newer gems like citrine, peridot, onyx, aquamarine, those ones will count for 10 towards spawning a mineshaft here. So it doesn't go into depth on this here, but it does in the patch notes. So that is a change that was made. And keep in mind for this Hoppity's Hunt, eggs claimed from Rabbit Hitman do count. So if you have not done the Rabbit Hitman stuff in here, then it might be a good idea to unlock all of the slots because that is going to count towards your pity system if you are going for max SkyBlock XP or max Hoppity. We are going to look at the patch notes for this next section. Ironman W's has been added to the alpha. So Ironman players will now have their own separate Shins auction, separate from normal profiles, but there is a reduced quantity of items available, so there will be less of the items available on an Ironman profile than for regular profiles. So if we go over to Shins auction real quick and check out the items that are available, you'll notice that for Artifact of Control, 10 people will win it. For Pandora's Box, there's a 20 bidder win limit. But if we go ahead and switch to an Ironman profile real quick, unfortunately I need to zoom milestone 10 and can't check, but the amount is supposed to be less on an Ironman profile compared to a regular profile. But you will notice when you click on an Ironman profile in your menu here, you can now swap it over to a normal profile. So if you started an Ironman profile, you regret it, you can swap it back to a normal profile, and then it will take 3 days before the profile is converted to a normal profile. In my opinion, they should also add this system to the delete profile section. I think a lot of players who have been ratted in the past would really benefit from this. Just in case you get ratted in the future, you won't lose your entire profile. You'll still lose items and things, but your profile won't be able to be permanently deleted unless they've gotten a hold of your account and had it for more than 3 days. So that would be a pretty major W if they were to do that for that system as well, but we'll just have to see if that happens. They've also changed some things with the auction house. The blocks tab in the auction house is gone. So if we go ahead and head straight over to the auction house here, we can check the browser and see that there's a cosmetic section now instead of the block section. So all the things that were blocks are now in tools and miscellaneous, but this cosmetic section is not only available for regular profiles, this is also the only section that is now available to Ironman. So you'll be able to buy dyes, skins, runes, and furniture from this area of the cosmetics tab on the auction house. If you are an Ironman player, you still won't be able to sell things, but if there's a cool skin you wanted to get without spending gems, then you can go ahead and make sure to buy it if there is one on the auction house once this comes to the main server. They've also added for Ironman Bazaar where you can buy a custom amount of booster cookies other than the preset amounts like before. So if you only want to buy 2 booster cookies, you don't have to click buy one twice. You can just set it to buy 2, or if you wanted to buy a bunch more than the preset amount, then you can do that as well. There is also a new section here above the Dwarven Mines. Normally I'd teleport to it, but there is a bug right now on the alpha. If you teleport, you get kicked for flying, so I'm not going to do that. But there's this new section above spawn with the Ironman info NPC and a couple other NPCs that will basically introduce you to the Ironman profile system. And you can even talk to one of them, I think it's this guy, and he'll open up the menu for if you want to start an Ironman profile. You can just talk to him. It's pretty cool. There have also been some changes to a few hunting shards. The Dominance Thorn shard is now a legendary shard, so you need less of the shards to be able to make this shard all the way up to max. It used to be epic, so you needed like 32 or something, and now for legendary shards, I think you only need 24. So that helps out a bit with that. There's also a new huge adjustment, a brand new shard from Scarf. It is a 100% drop from floor 2 in master mode. Same thing for Thorn. It's 100% drop from M4 in master mode now, and Emerald Chest and above. So same thing for Scarf, 100% drop from Emerald Chest and above in M2. And once you get it to max, it gives 20% more dungeon class XP. So I'm definitely going to be taking advantage of this on the grind to class average 50. They've also changed Mosquito Pet's third perk to when collected, pest traps will catch the next pest 20% faster. So if you swap to the Mosquito Pet whenever you open your traps, you can swap back to Hedgehog and actually catch the pests with that. But whenever you open the pest traps, if you open them with your Mosquito Pet equipped, then they will catch pests a bit faster. So this means Mosquito Pet actually has a somewhat decent use. They've also adjusted the Bobbin Time enchant, so it now gives double the stats per player nearby, but it is limited to only 5 bobbers, so it's the same max amount. Boosts fishing stats and magic find by up to 5 total percent, but instead of needing 10 players within 30 blocks, you only need 5 other players, which is generally the meta for fishing parties anyways. You want a max of 6 total people, yourself and 5 people to loot share. So this will work out big time to actually coincide with the meta quite a bit more. So Bobbin Time, pretty massive buff on that. There is also a new upgraded Armadillo Pet, the Mythic Armadillo Pet. Now there have been a couple of these bugged pets in the main game already, but they didn't have this well-worked perk that this one has. So it gets an extra perk, consumes 10% less energy when tunneling, and it does have 400 energy on it, whereas the regular legendary Armadillo Pet only has 300. You can upgrade this at Cat with a new item, which we can see in Centauri, the Frozen Scoot. This is a rare drop from Vanguard Corpses. So this is going to be a pretty sought after pet, pretty difficult to get your hands on, at least when it first comes out. But depending on the drop rate, we don't know the exact drop rate yet. Hopefully they won't be too rare. There is also a major change for non-MVP plus players. If you open your warp menu and check out the Crystal Hollows warps, you'll notice the Crystal Nucleus no longer requires MVP plus. So if you have the Crystal Nucleus scroll unlocked, you don't have to be MVP plus to use it anymore, which is a huge change. We've been asking for this for a very long time, so I'm glad it's finally getting added. And another thing mining related that has been complained about quite a bit is Mithril Powder grinding. So Mithril Powder grinding has gotten a ton of buffs. Most of the events that you can get Mithril Powder from have doubled their rates, so you get double the Mithril Powder from participating in them. It's also doubled the drop rate of it from Fetcher Quest, Puzzler Quest, Powder Gas, Goblins, not to mention the Dwarven Treasure, which gives the Royal Reforge, has been buffed. It used to be a 5% extra Mithril Powder from mining events. Now it is a 15% boost. So if you have this on your whole set, you'll be getting 60% more Mithril Powder from events instead of just 20%. So that is a pretty massive change. Going back to Glaciite Tunnels, if you do manage to luckily spawn a Peridot Mineshaft, Peridot Mineshafts were kind of small before. They will no longer be that. They are going to be much larger, so that should help out quite a bit with making money from Peridot. Although this will also probably make the price of Peridot go down a little bit, but still massive W if you are on Ironman going for Peridots. Going back to Shin's auction, they have also doubled the rates of these, by the way. So before you would get like 20 Shin's Regalias one, and 10 Pandora's boxes one, and 5 artifacts of control sold per year. So now this number has been doubled. That's going to be a pretty massive change. So hopefully the prices of these go down at least a little bit due to this adjustment. Also, for those of you that didn't know, Infinite Quiver was apparently bugged, so it wouldn't work if you were sneaking. This is now fixed, so you will now be able to save 30% of your arrows, whether you're sneaking or not. They've also adjusted the mayors a little bit, so if they only have one perk the third time that they show up, they are guaranteed to have a second perk. The 5th time they show up, they're guaranteed to have a 3rd one. And if they have access to 4, the 7th time they show up without getting elected, they are guaranteed to have 4. Every time in between that, it's a 50% chance that they increase. So if they show up the first time with 1 perk, the second time they show up, there's a 50% chance that they have a second perk. If they don't have a second perk that time, the third time they show up, they are guaranteed to have that second perk back. So basically, every time they show up, it's a 50% chance that they get the next perk. If they don't get it that time, the next time they are guaranteed to have it. They have also changed a few other pretty major things. So the Scorpion shortbow is now the Spider shortbow, which does double damage to egg sacs spawned by the Tarantula Broodfather. And the Mosquito shortbow now requires the Spider shortbow in its recipe to be able to make it, which this may have been a thing before, I'm not exactly sure. But the shot cooldown is 0.45 seconds on the left click ability as well, I believe. But it does triple damage to egg sacs spawned by the Tarantula Broodfather. So you might think, you know, with the way that it is on the main server, the T5 Tarantula spawns 3 eggs and they have 3 health. So when you shoot it with this, you should be able to delete the eggs pretty quickly. 3 shots and it's gone. Unfortunately, that is not the case. If we go ahead and spawn in a T5 Tarantula here real quick, whenever he goes to spawn in the eggs, you will notice they now have 15 health. So whenever you are shooting them, you have to shoot them a ton of times to actually get the eggs deleted. Doesn't help that this server is a little bit laggy, but it does take a bit longer now to clear out the eggs than it did before, which is pretty annoying, I'm not gonna lie. Hopefully they do reduce the amount of health that the eggs have. I don't think it needs to be that difficult to clear these out personally. I think giving them just 3 health and letting Mosquito Bow one-shot them is not the worst thing in the world, but we'll see what ends up happening. This is still the alpha, so there's bound to be changes before it comes to the main server. Hopefully, that's one of the changes that gets added. That is for the T5. It will spawn 4 egg sacs every time he goes into the egg phase, and they have 15 health apiece. For the T4, he'll only spawn 3, and they have 10 health. And for the T3, he'll spawn 2, and they have 5 health. So depending on the tier of boss that you're fighting, the difficulty of the egg sac section will increase. There's also been some changes to Agatha's contests. If you were getting a ton of points while hunting, that has been nerfed a bit. It used to be that you would get points per shard. So if you had a ton of hunting fortune and you were doing hunting, you could get a ton of points towards Agatha's contest just by doing that. But now it's going to count per mob that you hunt. So no matter your hunting fortune, you'll be getting the same amount of points as someone with 0 hunting fortune versus you if you have like 200. There's also been some pretty significant damage increases with this update for us in-game players. First off, the Totem of Corruption now will no longer work on mobs. It only works on sea creatures, so I know some people were only able to do some blaze skips if you could use the Totem of Corruption, which we'll talk about blaze skips here in a minute, but basically if you use Totem of Corruption, it gives mobs a ton of extra health, levels them up a bit, so if you kill them with Soul Eater, your next hit will deal a bunch of damage. And you can do some pretty crazy Slayer skips with that information, but you could, not anymore. Also on the main server at the moment, Smite 6 will do a 80% damage increase against Skeletal, Undead, and Wither mobs, but as you can see here, it's been reduced to 40%. Likewise, Sharpness increases damage by 50% on the alpha. I believe, according to the wiki at least, on the main server it's 65%. That may have been nerfed with mob types, but in total, a lot of these different changes have been made for a lot of these different enchants. So Bane of Arthropods is also down to 40% instead of 80%. So this alone is going to make doing some dragon skips and other things in M7 pretty difficult. But there's some other changes that we got to go over that also have nerfed this. The first of which is a major nerf to Reaper armor swapping. Basically, the strategy for M7 and Kudra right now is to use this full set bonus in Rage. Whenever you sneak, you get 100 bonus damage and 100 bonus strength and 100 bonus speed for 6 seconds. A lot of people would use this to deal extra damage in M7 to make sure you could skip dragons and be able to do a bunch of damage to Kudra and Kudra as well. But now if you swap off of the armor set, the ability will no longer be active. So you can swap to the set and use the ability, but when you swap back to your normal set, you'll lose the ability. So there's no reason to actually use it for Reaper swapping now. If you're using it as your main set, it's not been nerfed at all. Like if you're using this to do revs or something, then it's still fine. Gonna be perfectly useful there, but for Kudra and M7 specifically, it's not good anymore. They have also changed the Soul Eater enchant, so it is now going to be capped to dealing a maximum of 1,000,000 damage outside dungeons and a maximum of 1,000,000 damage against Slayers. So if you were doing Blaze Skip, Double Demon Skip, whatever you want to call it, it's gone now. You won't be able to do it with Soul Eater at all. So unfortunately, that money method is going to be a bit worse if you were taking advantage of this, but 07s, because when it comes to the main server, it will be gone. And finally, at the very bottom of the patch notes, they announced some pretty big information. This release includes the Dungeon Breaker from previous alphas. I didn't mention that in this because it's not really received any changes, but that is also on this alpha. They would like to let us know that they hope to release another patch to alpha in the near future with some pretty huge changes, such as Mort asking for something other than a spirit mask for his Abby phone contact. So that's a pretty big deal. Not to mention, the spirit mask will now come from M4 instead of from the dark auction. So you won't have to save up like 700 million coins to be able to drop one. You'll just be able to get it from M4 straight up. So this is a pretty huge adjustment for spirit mask. So really looking forward to this change. Gonna make it a lot easier for people to get into the higher master mode levels with a spirit mask on them. They did also nerf enchanted hoppers to give 70% of an item's NPC sell price. I believe it's like 90% at the moment, so that is a small nerf that they have also done amongst the other massive changes in here. But that is going to be all of the huge changes that they've done with this update. Again, it is only on the alpha right now, so it is subject to change. If anything massive changes, I will let you guys know. There will be a video or a short, and when it comes to the main server, there will definitely be a video. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe to stay up to date, and I'll catch you in the next one. God bless.